Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar, Learning an Easier Way to Make the School Connection. This webinar is especially designed for Nebraska's farmers and ranchers. Farm to School opens up a market for food producers that can be consistent, reliable, and fun. You may choose to directly sell to a school, to sell through a food distributor, or to offer agricultural opportunities to the students on or off the farm. My name is Sandra Runner, and I am a program specialist at the Center for Rural Affairs based out of Lyons, Nebraska. Joining me today is Sarah Smith, Farm to School Lead in Nebraska with the Center for Rural Affairs and the organizer of this series of webinars. We'll share information at the end of this webinar for two previous and archived webinars from this series, one for food service staff and one for food producers. And you can always find information on upcoming and archived webinars at our website, cfra.org/F2S, as in Farm to School. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website and on our YouTube channel with the Center for Rural Affairs. After the webinar, we'll share the link for the webinar with you, as well as links for presenter PowerPoints and any additional resources. Before we get started, please keep in mind that should your audio be unclear, you are able to switch from your computer mic or speaker to phone in, and you can locate the audio panel within your webinar control panel. Select the telephone button and the directions will appear. Also, I'd like to draw your attention to the control panel on your screen. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar by typing your questions into the question box at the bottom of your control panel. We will have time at the end of the webinar for presenters to answer these questions. Okay, now that housekeeping is out of the way, we are ready to begin our presentation. First up, we'll hear from Sarah with a general but very exciting overview of Farm to School in Nebraska. We'll then hear from Justin Jones, president and a producer-owner of Lone Tree Foods, a local food sales and marketing company based in eastern Nebraska. He also owns and operates Jones Produce on a small farm east of Crete, Nebraska, where he raises asparagus, potatoes, melons, and livestock. Next, Tini Van-Oehlertz is the food service director at Pius High School in Lincoln. Tini incorporates a significant amount of fresh food onto her school menu and is committed to scratch cooking. Tini's experience with local foods has been nothing but positive, and she'll share how her farm to school story started. And lastly, but not least, we'll hear from Dawne Price of Price Farms near Lyons, Nebraska. As a farmer's daughter with values that represent self-sufficiency, Dawne and her husband started raising food for themselves in 2005. The marketing of these products is new, and they are working now to increase the options for others and share their bounty with their neighbors and their local school. We're glad to have so much experience with us today on this webinar. All right, without further ado, take it away, Sarah.
Thanks, Sandra. Thanks to everyone for joining today. It's a real privilege to have this wealth of food system experience on the line here to share their experience. And I'm here, I'd like to provide a bit of context for Farm to School in Nebraska and some ideas for when and how farmers and ranchers can get involved. So it's November now, we've just closed up Farm to School month, and we celebrated that in October. Back in September, Governor Pete Ricketts signed a proclamation that declared October as Farm to School month in Nebraska. It's also a national celebration, and states across the United States take action then. So back on October 22nd, for example, there was an apple crunch, and across the nation at noon local time, hundreds and thousands of students participated in that apple crunch where everyone took a bite of an apple at the same time. Another example for Farm to School month is on October 22nd, there was a Midwest meal offered. And so schools highlighted a local veggie, meat product, fruit, local grain, whenever feasible. So this is just an example of a great way to get involved in a school, is to offer something during that Farm to School month. And you can test the waters in that way for selling local foods. So in this picture at the proclamation, we had a full representation of key people on board. For example, we have here a school administrator, an ag educator, a student, farmer, rancher, and the Nebraska Department of Education, as well as a school food service director. All right, so we also want to encourage you to take action for Farm to School. Back on October 13th, Congressman Fortenberry visited North Public Schools in First to celebrate their Farm to School efforts. Nebraska's Representative Fortenberry is co-leading efforts in Congress to pass the Farm to School Act within the Child Nutrition Act reauthorization. shortened as CNR, and that act strengthens farm to school across the country. The deadline for Congress to reauthorize CNR is now. The previous CNR, known as the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, actually expired on September 30th, and Congress hasn't yet passed a new version of this bill. So we want to make sure legislators know that farm to school is a common sense approach to child nutrition that empowers kids and their families to make informed food choices while strengthening the local economy and contributing to our vibrant communities. So if you're interested in taking action and making your voice heard, you can go to our website at cfra.org/F2S and sign on to endorse this act. You'll see an orange bar and you can click on it. It says endorse the Farm to School Act of 2015. You can also share a story by posting a photo of your farm, your trucks in the field, your veggies in the field, farmers, or any school lunches you participate in, and use Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and some hashtags you can see on the slide here, hashtag more F2S in CNR and hashtag farm to school. And some interesting information has come about with USDA. They've announced early results from the second farm to school census and found that more than $598 million of local food were purchased nationally in 2013 and 14 school year. And that represents a pretty significant increase of 55% over the last census 2 years past. So whether this is through buying local foods, building school gardens, or taking a field trip to a local farm, these programs do improve child nutrition and provide dynamic educational experiences for students, all the while providing new market opportunities for our local and regional farmers. And just for our information, 56% of Nebraska schools responded to the census. And USDA is accepting submissions of new data and encouraging districts to correct existing records through November 20th. So you can feel free to encourage your local district to respond to the census or for edits, because we'd love to see those numbers be higher than 56%. That information is good for us to know how to move forward with our efforts in farm to school. After that submission period is closed, then USDA can retabulate the numbers and they'll start releasing those final results in early 2016. And we can see from some of these results the value of farm to school evidence from these early census numbers. We're seeing reduced plate waste, improved acceptance of healthier school meals, increased participation in school meal programs, lower school meal program costs, and increased support from parents and community members. Those are all great things. And one other way that we celebrate and promote these benefits is on social media, and we use these hashtags. And at the end of this presentation, we can share with you the Nebraska Farm to School social media handles that we use. And it's a good thing. Just make a note of some of these so you can promote your own efforts. We encourage Nebraska students to take a picture of colorful, local school lunch food and share on social media with the hashtag #ThanksLunchLady. Anyone involved in any farm to school efforts are encouraged to share stories with us using social media, or get in touch with us directly if we can help share your story. So just to be clear about farm to school and what exactly it is, the National Farm to School Network states that farm to school enriches the connection communities have with fresh, healthy food and local food producers by changing food purchasing and education practices at schools and preschools. So basically it's done in one of three ways listed here. Procurement is when local foods are purchased, promoted, and served in the cafeteria or as a snack or taste test. Education is when students participate in educational activities that are related to agriculture, food, health, or nutrition. And with school gardens, students are engaging in hands-on learning with gardening. So in your role as a grower and a food producer, you can actually take a hands-on approach with any of these target areas. So for example, selling your food into schools is awesome. Join a classroom to talk about your business and growing practices is always a possibility, or you could even work as a mentor for the school garden. Those are just a few examples. And we also like to make sure that it's very clear that farm to school is not just about fruits and vegetables, but it's also reaching across the whole plate. So it's fruits, vegetables, meat, fish, grains, beans, eggs, milk, and cheese. And these local items can be incorporated in any aspect of school food. Whether it be breakfast, lunch, or snacks, it can be in the school day, maybe it's after school, maybe it's in the summer programs. And when looking at what exactly is local, well, that is done at the school level. There's no federal or state standards required for this. Some school districts are able to define what local means in any manner or form. So you might have a different definition of local for different products, or maybe it'll depend on a season or a special event you're doing. An example might be that Omaha Public Schools defines local as within a 240-mile radius. And this means that their local product purchases likely dip into other states. But maybe in central Nebraska, your school would declare that any Nebraska product is local. Or if you're in an area really rich with local options, your definition might be within your county or surrounding counties. And Farm to School provides so many benefits to you as farmers and ranchers, and we'll just review a couple of these. One, the school market can really provide a new income for your farm. It's a new way to sell surplus food you might have, like tomatoes, at the end of the season. Or it gives a strong partnership for growing more acres of a new crop, perhaps, and selling on contract with schools, knowing in advance what you're going to be planting and selling to them. Also, while schools do need a high-quality product, it doesn't necessarily have to be cosmetically perfect. Schools may have the ability to minimally process products on site and may be able to pay you for your misshapen or grade B products. And then I'm looking at number 5 here, that Farm to School really is free advertising. When you sell your products to schools or engage in educational opportunities with schools, you're creating an awareness of your farm. And school cafeterias really do like to highlight the farmers that are providing ingredients for their meals. Farmers who sell to schools might be featured on menus, cafeteria walls, or newsletters home to parents. And the students also really get excited about the farmers that they're learning about at school and take that message home to share with their families. And last on this topic, I just want to highlight that it's great to know that your sales to schools are actually educating our current and future generations about healthy food choices and the importance of local food. And when we talk to food service managers about where to source local foods, we often direct them to the opportunities that you see here. We do strongly encourage food service directors to reach out to farmers direct. They're often not sure how to find you, though. They often wear a lot of hats. So they're menu planning, they're cooking, serving, managing staff, cleaning. They're oftentimes doing the whole gamut. And we hear from them that they really do appreciate when food producers approach them. So please don't be afraid to do that. You can always feel free to directly contact the school to get started with this. We also work with schools on finding the farmers in Nebraska through a Nebraska farmers map that we have on our website at cfra.org/F2S. We like to make it easier for them to find farmers. So we add them to the map as we know they are interested and willing to work with Farm to School. If you are not added to this map at this point, you can connect with me, and I would love to add your information. We just look for a general description, your contact information, any website information you might have, so that folks can find more information about what you offer. A couple more options you see below that we send food service staff to. buylocalnebraska.org is a good option, ourbesttoyou.nebraska.gov, and then some local food distributors. Lone Tree Foods, who's on the call with us today, and Nebraska Food Cooperative both offer local foods to schools and distribution. Farm to School, it has lots of good spots to go for more information, so feel free to stay in touch with us at the Center for Rural Affairs. You will, as a webinar attendee, be signed up for our monthly Farm to School newsletter. You'll see opportunities listed there that include success stories, possible funding opportunities, profiles for schools who are active in Farm to School, and any upcoming webinars and conferences, trainings related to this topic. All right. I think that wraps it up from my side of things, and we'll move it back over to you, Sandra.
Thanks, Sarah. Now, let's see here. Next up, let's hear Justin Jones, President of Lone Tree Foods.
Thank you, Sandra. I'm going to bring up my screen here. All right. Well, thanks for being here, and I'm excited to talk with you a little bit about my perspective on Farm to School, coming from the perspective of a producer and also with my work with Lone Tree Foods. I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about Lone Tree Foods and what we do, and also our experience that we've had with working with schools. And I'm going to talk a bit about the specifics of our approach to work with schools. What is it that we're trying to offer to schools that we think can help them and make local food purchasing more appealing. And then finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about where this is all going, because it's really, farm to school in Nebraska is really in the beginning stages, and while there's a very big potential to it, I think a lot of it is unrealized for a variety of reasons, and the more that we can identify what those reasons are, what the challenges are, and address them, the further this is going to get. So Lone Tree Foods, for those that aren't familiar with us, has been in existence for a couple of years now, and our mission is to connect local farmers and food producers with wholesale buyers. And the reason that's our specific focus is that we really felt that there was a huge untapped market in the wholesale area, whether that be restaurants, grocery stores, bulk buys from individuals, or with schools, and that we could best address that demand by working together as a group rather than as individual farms. And primarily that was an issue of scale. Simply put, a lot of wholesale buyers' scale is larger than what individual farms can provide, especially some of the smaller and medium-sized farms that we work with. So we felt to really offer the best variety of products in the greatest quantity and in the most convenient way, working together would be the best way to go. So we are majority producer owned and operated. Myself as the president and two other owners are also producers that sell almost all of our products through Lone Tree Foods. And we also have a large number of other farms. Right now I believe we're working with 32 other farms in both Nebraska and Iowa. The way we operate is that we generate a weekly price list that goes out to all of our buyers or potential buyers, similar to the way that larger national distributors do it, in which a price list is issued, orders can be made during a specified order window, and then we collect the orders and give them to the producers, and then the products come to us. One of the big parts of our operation that has been quite successful is our online shopping on our website, so that buyers can go directly to our website and have a online e-commerce experience where they can just peruse what we have available, look at the pictures and descriptions, order and check out, and that fulfills the same function as they could use a phone call to our sales as well. So we're handling the entire process from marketing the products, making sales, taking the orders, doing the deliveries, invoicing the buyers, and making payments to the producers. And the whole idea of this is to make this process as convenient, and especially the buyers, because we felt like one of the biggest challenges to getting more wholesale purchasing of local foods was simply the convenience factor. It's hard for a very busy food service director or produce manager or chef to reach out to a variety of different farms to find out what they may or may not have available, and we're trying to bring that directly to them in the easiest way possible. So I'll tell you now a little bit about our experience with Farm to School. We've been selling to schools for almost as long as we've been in existence, which is now a couple of years. And I've given you here some examples of some of the customers that we've worked with. And I think about all these as much as anything in terms of scale. I think scale is really important in all this, in that we're trying to provide appropriate scale to buyers and find the appropriate scale of producers that fit their needs. There's always some crossover in that, but I think by and large it works best for a large buyer to be paired with larger producers, and vice versa, smaller buyers to be paired with smaller producers, because a lot of times the needs and desires that size of buyer has fits well with the products and philosophy of the appropriate sized producer. So here I've listed some of the customers we've had, going from the University of Nebraska, which is obviously a very large buyer, Omaha Westside Schools, Council Bluffs Community Schools, Nora School District in Firth, Nebraska, and then our smallest school that we worked with, which was a Montessori school in Roca, Nebraska, called Prairie Hill. I touched on this a little bit already, but I want to really talk more about what specifically we're trying to offer to schools that we think that they want and need and can really help this process along. Number one is professionalism. And specifically what that means to us is that we're offering the schools assurance that the producers they're buying from are following sound business practices, sound food safety practices, and sound production practices. And so it's sort of a shorthand for them having to do their own research that we've done it for them. We have insurance certification from all of our producers. We have requested food safety certification or evidence of food safety training from our producers. We verify their sustainability practices with a signed affidavit. And we also ensure that the products are actually of local origin, which we define as more or less 200 miles from the customer or within the state. So obviously a Nebraska product can be more than 200 miles from a school in Omaha, for example. We would still consider that local. We also offer a large variety of products of all kinds, much larger than you could get from any one particular farm. And that includes produce of all types, various meats and animal products, dairy, cheeses, and also processed products, grains, flours, honey, and miscellaneous items like that. And we offer these products as much as possible in quantities that can be really useful to a food service director. Now that can vary depending on how they're using it from, for example, one case for a very special item on a salad bar for one day, all the way up to enough to put on all the plates for a day, a week, or even a whole semester. So by having a variety of producers working together, sometimes those quantities can be met from multiple farms, not just the one farm. So in any case, quantity comes from working together as well. And lastly, we provide promotional support, which is to say that when a school does this, they want people to know about it, right? It's important for them to promote it. So we have marketing materials that we can give to the schools to help them do that in terms of pictures, biographical information, maps, quotes, all that kind of thing, so that they can really get the word out that they are doing good work in providing local to their students. A couple of quick ideas about how we've seen schools use local products. I'm sure that Tini can elaborate on this more, but it really doesn't have to be something that they use the whole year round. And that, I think, is a common misconception that you have to have something in enormous quantities because the school is going to have to replace all of their, for example, green beans with your green beans for the entire year for all the students. That's just not necessarily true or necessarily the smart way to start. So sometimes schools will have special programs. For example, with Council Bluffs, we started working with them on their summer lunch program where they were providing several hundred meals a day in the community. They had a lot more flexibility with that program than they did with their standard procurement, so it was a good way to start. I'm going to talk a little bit now about the future, where we see this going, and what we think the parties involved need to focus on if this is really going to work well. I'll start with producers. From our angle, here's what we need to really develop. We need professionalism, and I mentioned some of those things before in terms of really having your business tightened up, having insurance appropriate, packaging, and just a professional presence so that, you know, returning calls promptly, that whole kind of thing where I would hope that it wouldn't need to be said, but I found that sometimes it does. You really need to think of yourself as a business person because that's what the food service directors are used to dealing with. I also think product specialization is important, and I certainly don't mean monoculture, but I think we all have some items that we're good at producing, and the more that we can have quantities of those available, the more likely it is that it can be used by a larger entity such as a school. And I also think pricing is important, and that's not to say that we should be trying to match national prices, far from it. But we do have to be aware that schools are not going to be able to pay farmers market prices, and we have to be as efficient as possible to get our prices where it's something that they can work with. From the perspective of schools, I think it would be helpful for them to seek institutional support from their leadership. The more that you have your leaders aligned with what you're trying to do, the easier it is. There may be special funding available to help this. I know budgets are very tight, so the more that you can tap into the farm to school support that is offered out there, the more that you'll be able to do. You need flexibility to understand that local farms are not necessarily monolithic producers of commodities that can be called upon at any given time or place, that there's going to be some shifts and some unforeseen things that come up. And then by all means get students involved. We had one school that bought green beans from us, and they were hesitant at first because they knew that they needed to be prepared and that they didn't have the labor for that, so they got the students to do it. And finally, I just want to say that long-term thinking, big picture thinking, that all parties really need to focus on making a commitment to making this work, using their creativity to find unique solutions to problems that come up, and having patience, understanding that it's not going to necessarily be a direct replacement for the systems that we're used to, but if we keep working at it, it's very likely to bear fruit. Thank you, and here is my contact information if anybody would like to get in touch with me directly, have any questions about joining Lone Tree Foods as a producer or about working with us as a school. I'd be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Next up, we'll hear from Tini Van-Oehlertz, joining us from Pius 10 High School in Lincoln. And whenever you're ready, Tini.
I think I'm ready. Are you ready for me?
Absolutely. Take it away.
Before I get started, I just want to say if there's any veterans in the group today that's listening, to thank you for the support of our country and protecting our freedoms. This is an important day for anybody who served in the military. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a registered dietitian, and I got my master's degree, and then I did my dietetic internship in New Orleans. And then I also, work experience, I'm getting probably closer to retirement. I worked 2 years at Turo Infirmary in New Orleans, and then I worked 25 years at Lincoln General Hospital and Hospital Food Service. And then I worked 2 years at Norris, and this is my 8th year in Pius. I started the program about 8 years ago. I want to tell you a little bit about what farm and school means to me, and why it's such an important thing for me. My dad ran grain elevator for a living, so I kind of lived it a long time. And my first job working at his elevator, I said in my PowerPoint that I worked as a secretary. Well, first thing I did was clean bathrooms, which is not very glamorous, but it was my first job there. My mom grew up on a farm and did milking, and my mom always had a huge, huge garden, and my parents always preached growing up to buy local and support your local businesses. And I think it's really important in farm to school that we all do our part to support the local economy, and there's no better produce I've had than what I've gotten from the farm to school. Sorry, my screen's acting up. Any of the products where you do not have to go through a middleman always seem to have a greater quality. When I first heard about the farm to school program, I thought that how would I ever connect with a farmer? How would I ever know the farmer and how much I needed and how I could connect with them? So when I had the opportunity to go to a farm to school meeting in October 2014, that kind of brought everything together. Quite a bit of the day was talked about pricing and how we would determine pricing. But what amazed me there was that the food safety standards that were being followed was very impressive to me. Having been a dietitian in hospital and school food service for almost 40 years, the sanitation was an extreme issue to me, and that was so well done. It was amazing. And so the local producers explained their procedures for processing all of their products. And probably the best part of the Farm to School Summit was the World Cafe session that happened toward the end of the day, where farmers and food service directors had an opportunity to interact. They kind of had a circle chair thing where we kind of moved around the room and visited with each person. And the day that I did this, I connected with Gary Fair, who's an edible farmer who just started his vegetable farm. And it was very exciting because he thought that he had to have all the products that I needed, and I knew that that wouldn't be possible, that they'd have to, with the growing season being, March to May when school ends, and then the things at the end of the summer. So we knew that it had to be realistic about what they could provide. So Gary and I met the possibilities of what products we could provide, and we have 1,200 students in our school, so we're feeding about 800 kids a day, so I do use a lot of food. But again, like I say, I knew that he could not provide everything, and it would be only for a limited time. When the Nebraska Co-op, I was so impressed when I would get my orders. They bring the consumers, everything is brought together, and the people that share an interest in the land, and they have an enjoyment of food and seek, a good relationship. Gary put my information on the Nebraska Web Co-op site for me, and then the ordering process began. So last spring, I ordered a lot of things, and it was just, to me, it was very exciting. When my stuff would come, I would bring, one of our secretaries at school is a master gardener. I'd bring people and just show them how beautiful this produce is. I mean, it was phenomenal. Gary and I realized, again, talking about the season, I don't have a cycle menu, which some people do, so my menu is constantly changing, which is, I think, is good. So we don't have like a Taco Tuesday or whatever, but it's always changing. We have 3 large fruit and vegetable bars every day, 6 foot long, for every lunch period that the kids clean up and eat, and so that you do use a lot of produce. My PowerPoint's goofed up. This is a good fit for Pius. Quality is the #1 goal for all of our food, and to me, I might be an exception to this, but a high product to me will take precedence over something that looks terrible. We do a lot of scratch cooking in our kitchen. We have at least a recipe every day, sometimes 2 recipes. And the fruits and vegetables and other products that I purchase are so exceptional. It's just unbelievable. When the order comes, like I said, I bring people in just to see this food. And one of the last times I ordered, knowing it was toward the end of the season, I ordered granola, and we got some beautiful bakery products because we do catering here. I bought acorn squash, and I had to laugh because it was the school colors, green and gold. And we served the kids acorn squash. They weren't particularly wild about it. Some kids tried it, and some people said, oh, I didn't know it tasted that good. So what we did with our leftovers, we put it in with pumpkin and made pumpkin bread, so they end up eating it anyway. The biggest thing is, the season is so limited, so buying fresh, beautiful produce for me is a no-brainer. Gary and I knew that there was no way that we could provide everything we needed, and it just gave us a starting point for the year. And we know that weather was a factor, and it was a terrible factor for him this year because of all the wet. The spring was terribly wet, and I think this was his first year of growing his farm too, so I know that will always be an issue. And as far as support, every time I have a conversation with anybody who's in food service or anyone else that wants to listen, I'm very supportive about farm school. And I ask other food service directors if they've tried it. You just need to try it. The products are absolutely spectacular, and I'm sold. So that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thanks so much, Tini.
You bet.
Next up, we have Dawne Price from Price Farms. And whenever you're ready, Dawne, we're ready to have you present.
Did my PowerPoint show up? So my name is Dawne Price, and I'm a small farmer at Lyons, Nebraska. And I was contacted earlier this year by Sandra, and she had encouraged me to reach out to the school. And my husband and I both have, believe in rural living, and and our life's values are centered around, eating what we grow. So since we both have full-time jobs, we went to talk to the school the first part of August and contacted Lyons-Decatur and Brenda Sears at the local school. And our first visit with them, we took in a basket of fresh vegetables. Now, this was just surplus from our normal garden area. We also took in a package of naturally raised lamb burger and some recipes for Brenda to try. We established an order system. We agreed with Brenda that we would email her on Thursday the items that we had available for sale, and then we would deliver them on Monday, and this worked for our schedule and for Brenda's schedule. So we were really excited about getting started. I had an opportunity to go to a program in Omaha, and at this program, the Local Foods for Local Tables Conference. And at the conference, there was a gentleman there presenting about getting kids involved in the process. Michael Maroney talked about the projects he was doing with the 30th Street Elementary School. And it really motivated me to do something more than just take fresh vegetables to the school or to sell fresh vegetables to the school. So we had started the process of the vegetables, and Brenda was, we were getting a little bit of feedback from her and just continued to work on this. So I mentioned to Brenda that I would be willing to have the kindergartners come to a planting day. And my hat's off to the school, because that information was communicated to the kindergartner teacher, and we got a phone call and we set a date. The kids came out to the farm, and we prepared a place for them to plant fall peas and cleared a walking path and made sure that, the area was, safe for little kids. And we started just talking about what all is involved with growing your own food, and the kids were just great. It was, I really enjoyed it. They came up with answers like dirt and rain and sun, and one little girl said soil, and I'm guessing she's a farmer's daughter too. So we each picked out one pea out of a box, and we went into the garden and we planted our peas. So the first thing we did was talk about, so we planted our peas, and I kept thinking about what can I do for this learning experience, and we talked about words that started with the letter P, and we planted in groups. The girls were very attentive to their planting. While the girls were planting their peas, the boys had found a toad, and that kind of got us all distracted. But it was really fun to just get into the dirt and watch the kids just light up and ask questions. And then we walked all over the farm and did words starting with P all over the farm, fence posts and plums, and we picked pansies and smelled parsley. So now we know that we need to assess further. We discovered that pricing was an issue, and that's been brought up by both Justin and Tini, that we didn't know for sure how to price, and we'd only done farmers markets, so that was the only pricing basis that we had to go by. Brenda had bought a bushel of green beans, and when she was done prepping them, it was like, okay, that's not going to work either, because time-wise for her, because she's they're a small kitchen, and that was took too much time, even though the kids loved it. She said the kids love the fresh green beans, but there was a time factor involved. We also discovered that just growing, just taking our excess wasn't enough. We need to actually plant and plan differently when we're planting in order to fulfill orders for the school to the extent that they need produce. So more assessment is needed. Both Bill and I work full-time, so this is kind of like our hobby. So we know we need to still sit down with Brenda and just ask some questions. Did the fresh beets work on the salad bar? Was the quality what she expected, or the quantity? Do we need to do value-added product to, like, the green beans? Say we clean them and snap them and then charge a little higher price. or is the price a bigger concern? So we need to just sit down with the school directly and determine, what worked and what didn't work. We're really thankful that Sandra kind of started us on this path, and we are hoping to continue to grow it, grow the process, and grow the sales to the school, because it is important to both Bill and I to continue to give back to our communities and our young people especially. We want to give them the thing that was given to us, and that was the love of rural living. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dawn, and thanks to all of our fantastic presenters. We really appreciate the time you've taken to share your experiences and with Farm to School here in Nebraska. So while we wait for some questions to come in, I'll share with you where we can find our archived webinars from this series. Bear with me here. Okay. This slide shows us 2 other webinars we've hosted in the past month. They are archived and ready for you to view at these links. You'll also find at the CFRA.org links a copy of the PowerPoints and any applicable handouts for you to download for your use. Following this presentation, we will send you an email with links for archived webinar video as well as the PowerPoint from today. And let me check to see if we have any questions coming in. It doesn't look like we do. Just closing here, for farmers, food producers, and food businesses near Northeast Nebraska, we are excited to kick off an exciting new project, Rural Food Business Growth, that we hope will serve as a launch pad to strengthening our food system and make it even more feasible to bring value-added foods to market, particularly schools. So I just wanted to make sure that we do invite anyone interested in learning more about that project to join us in West Point on November 17th for our open house at the Nielsen Center from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can stop by any time to learn more about the training sessions that we will offer. You can take a tour of the commercial kitchen for rent there and ask questions and help us identify so we can address some of your challenges, and also sample local foods from Northeast Nebraska. Please feel free to visit CFRA.org for more information or contact Sandra directly. And I'm just Sandra R. at CFRA.org. The slide here that I'm showing does put you in touch with Sarah, so you can also filter some of those questions through her, or any other questions that you have if you'd like to reach out after the webinar about the information you learned here today, or if you're in need of other resources. On the web, you can find Farm to School information along with our online guide that we launched this year at www.cfra.org/F2S. You can find Nebraska Farm to School on Facebook. You can tweet with us at CFRA through the Center for Rural Affairs Twitter handle, and you can also find Center for Rural Affairs on Instagram at Rural Nerd. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope everyone has a great week. And as Tini mentioned, we do appreciate the service of our veterans, and it's important to note that today on November 11th. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.